A man named Super Slime created a community Discord server called The Fold, which I will try to remember to leave a link to in the description of this video if you want to join. Basically, the whole idea of this Discord server was to get a number of content creators, including me, Spartan Elite 43, the Hivehound, the Legendary V19, the Monk 52, and I think a handful of others like Big J. We're all in that Discord server, and the idea is we want to get our audiences in there so that the community can be brought closer together. And the reason I'm opening the video telling you about this particular server is because I had a conversation in there yesterday that got me thinking a little bit, which, is always a good thing when it comes to this game. After all, we are playing the thinking man's action game on console, right? In any case, the discussion was about the skill level of the players that you often see in the game, and I think I've said this before in one of my videos talking about the problem with World of Warships Legends, but a lot of people like to play this game casually. For them, fun in this game simply means taking out their ship and seeing big explosions and damage numbers. Maybe they take out a battleship, they try to go for the salvo that gets them the citadel and the highest amount of damage without thinking about too much else. Maybe they take out one of their IJN destroyers and they YOLO straight into a battleship, launching all the racks of torpedoes right into the side, getting a dev strike, and then getting blown up and sent back to port before the game is even 5 minutes old. Now, people who play this game casually without too much seriousness and they're just looking for fun, if they're engaging in that kind of activity, that to them might be fun. And who am I to argue with that? In any case, what I want to do is define what I think is fun in World of Warships Legends, and that is the Tier 7 Atlantico. Just kidding, it is a fun ship. It's not the be-all, end-all of fun. What I would say is fun in World of Warships Legends is when you take a ship, any ship, and you try to play it to its strengths while also keeping in mind the broader tactics and strategies that help you win games in World of Warships Legends. Basically, fun to me is playing this game as well as I possibly can, and then hopefully achieving at least fairly close games where the result is not going to be obvious in the first 5 minutes. And what I've got for you today here with the Atlantico is sort of an example of that. I don't know that this is all that close of a game, but we do end up playing the Atlantico, I think, fairly well, and we end up playing it to its strengths. And I think I managed to achieve the most damage I've ever achieved in the Atlantico in this particular match. It's going to be well over 200k, and there is going to be a lot of secondary action. Now, of course, the Atlantico is a fairly slow battleship, so it does take a moment to get into position. It's also a battleship with maybe not that much HP, only 60,000, and I think a lot of other Tier 7 battleships have a little bit more than that. So what we don't want to do is just push straight into this capture circle. One of our destroyers already tried that, and he's dead. And you can see that two of my teammates, a cruiser and a battleship, had initially been going out to the western flank around this Charlie Cap, but for some inexplicable reason, they've turned around and they're now heading back toward me. I think if they had continued with that push and gone around the island of the Charlie Cap, they could potentially get the broadside of this Massachusetts and this other battleship in the cap had they continued, but instead they're coming back toward me, which ultimately just puts us all in the same place on the map and makes sure that this Bismarck and this Massachusetts only need to worry about angling toward one section of the map. In other words, no crossfires are being made here. And I, myself, am not going to be able to make one at the moment. The Atlantico is just too slow, and we're already sort of committed to this position. Note that we've got our stern pointed at the enemies and our bow pointed towards safety, We are in a kiting position because there are a lot of enemy ships over here, one of which I think is a destroyer. And so what we don't want to do is find ourselves pushing straight into these enemies, getting stuck in a scenario where we're going to be focused by all these ships and potentially torpedoed by a destroyer with no ability to escape. Well, scratch that. If we are pushing straight in here, we would perhaps have the ability to escape, but in order to do it, we would have to turn completely around, expose broadside to the battleships, and then risk getting citadeled or taking critical damage in order to do it. Whereas if we are able to maintain this position, we can allow our secondaries to farm damage off of these battleships as they push into us, thereby putting them at a disadvantage. Anytime you are kiting away from the enemy and the enemy is pushing into you, it doesn't really matter what kind of ship you're in. You are at an inherent advantage. But that Nelson there, he's a bit of a problem. We're going to have to deal with him because he does actually have a crossfire on us, especially if that Bismarck continues to push in that direction. But Bismarck, he's looking a lot worse for wear. I don't think he's sunk yet, but any second now, maybe we'll even get the skill kill with the secondaries. No, Caracciolo teammate takes him out. That's fine. We get a citadel through Nelson's bow, which is lovely. And of course, Nelson, bit of a glass cannon. What you don't want to do is push straight bow into something with 15-inch guns like the Atlantico, because they can just go right through the bow and they're going to have no problem accessing the citadel. Nelson, though, is distracted by our teammate, the Caracciolo, which is one of only 2 remaining teammates that we have left. This game has gone very quickly in a poor direction, honestly, sort of for both teams. There are 8 minutes left on the clock, and there are only, 8 ships left alive in this match. 3 on our team, 4 on the Reds. Not exactly the most competitive game you've ever seen in your life, but the point here is that we've been playing the Atlantico carefully, to its strengths. We've racked up 128,000 damage thus far, sort of sitting in this position and just farming ships as they push in. Now, we don't have control of the rest of our teammates. Earlier on, the destroyer that spawned on the Charlie Cap with us simply scuttled his ship by sailing straight into the cap with no intelligence data, run face first into the enemy destroyer and like 3 battleships, and poof, gone. So, you know, that's how most players play this game. They don't really play it tactically or with much strategery. It's not really a word, but in any case, they just play it casually. And for me, fun is playing the ship to its strengths. So that's what we've been doing. And we're going to continue to do that as these guys push in. I think we do actually have a solid shot of winning this game. Nelson is not going to be on the surface of the sea much longer. He's just continuing to sit there with his 25mm bow pointed at me. So it's only a matter of time before he goes down. We don't actually manage to get the killing blow. That honor goes to the now deceased Caracciolo. And we have to duel a Massachusetts. There's also 1 other battleship left, and a destroyer. The other battleship, though, is in the cap on the other side of the map, which is also occupied by our last remaining teammate, our friendly destroyer. Now, unfortunately, Massachusetts does get a good salvo into us there, and we're down to about 15,000 HP, which means he does have a distinct HP advantage over us, but our secondaries are a lot better than his. That might be a little bit of a hot take. People do enjoy the Massachusetts secondaries, but the thing about those is that they are 127mm guns, and while they might be accurate and they might start a lot of fires, they aren't going to damage the Atlantico's hull very much. They're only really going to get damage if they manage to hit the superstructure or if they light a fire. Whereas the Atlantico's secondaries are like 2 heavy cruisers strapped to either side. They have no problem whatsoever penetrating the armor scheme of the Massachusetts in more places than just the superstructure, and they do a lot of damage and start a lot of fires. So Massachusetts, as he pushes in, yes, he was chunking us with his AP. Even his secondaries are doing a little bit of damage, but overall, Our fire between our main guns and our secondaries are just a little bit more potent. And so the Massachusetts is quickly losing a lot of his HP. But that, of course, is when the Z-31 decides to pop up and start shooting at me. And of course, he's full HP as a destroyer. Anytime I see a destroyer, I want to try to take shots at it, especially this late in the game where it's just down to me and one enemy destroyer. If we can remove even a little bit of HP off that Z-31, that's going to make it easier for our last remaining teammate to help out and take him out. We have no idea how healthy our blue destroyer is, so anything we can do against that Z-31 is going to be good. For some inexplicable reason, the Massachusetts decides not to press his advantage and instead go behind that island, where he can't shoot at me, but I also can't shoot at him. I'm on fire. I've got like 3,600 HP left. Massachusetts still has more than I do. Not exactly sure why he wanted to take himself away. Maybe the power of the Atlanticos secondaries was simply too much for him to contend with. But now that he's taken that much HP from me, well, we do have this Colorado left to deal with, and we've got that destroyer who is now engaged in a fight with our last remaining teammate. The HP on the two of them is fairly similar, I think, but the red destroyer has an advantage there, and our blue teammate is quickly losing his HP. The red destroyer goes dark, but I don't really remember, honestly, what happens here. I think I remember the result of this game, and it's not necessarily great. We do get taken down there. I thought maybe I was angled enough, but apparently not quite. Massachusetts gets the killing blow. He manages to survive with just a little bit of HP left, and then the game ends as the enemy wins on points. So a bit of a tragic result in terms of losing, but still, I had fun in this game, primarily because I played the Atlantico to its secondary-related strengths and racked up 217,000 damage, much of that coming from the secondaries. Even though we lost, that to me is fun, and that's what I'm playing this game for, is to have fun like this. It doesn't necessarily matter that the result is a defeat, as long as you had fun on the way. And that is what I recommend keeping in mind as you play this game, because it can get frustrating and annoying, and you feel like you just can't win. And sometimes you can't win, but sometimes you can have fun in the process. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.